Hello everyone! We're going to talk about paper mache. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of paper mache and then show you a demonstration of the process. Now what is paper mache? It's a material that is made of paper mixed with water, glue, and other substances, and it hardens as it dries. And papier mâché is French for chewed paper. There's two types of paper mache. Pulped paper mache, which is when they soak paper in water and let it get all disintegrated and smush it all up into like a paste. And then torn strips of paper, which they dip in glue mixture and use. And that is what we're going to be doing. Now the pulp type of paper mache is used to carve molded and sculpted pieces, and the strip form is used to cover surfaces or forms. The history of paper mache, its exact origin is not known specifically, but it's believed to be started in China in the Han Dynasty. Now China invented paper, and they used paper mache for things like helmets, and the earliest known examples of these helmets are found in that Han Dynasty. And if you see this picture of this suit of armor made by paper mache, it's kind of interesting that they would use paper to protect themselves, but they made layers of lacquer, which is like a varnish that dries quickly into a shiny layer. And they made multiple layers of this varnish to make it very, very strong. Paper mache spread to Japan and Persia, and they began selling goods to England and France. And England and France started making their own, hence the name paper mache in French, papier mache. Now this is a French doll here. It's an example of making a doll out of paper mache. The head is made out of paper mache, and probably the arms and legs. And these here are examples of items that were made in Japan and Persia and traded to France. Modern uses of paper mache include many things, and let's talk about a few of them. First of all, Mexico as a country uses paper mache a lot in their culture, especially and most importantly for the Day of the Dead parades. Now, the Day of the Dead is a Mexican holiday which is celebrated on November 1st and 2nd, and it's a gathering of family and friends to remember those that have died. And they use lots of different aspects of paper mache to make sugar skulls and different little characters to put on altars to honor the dead, and also in the parades. And this picture down here is an example of a float item or something that's going to go on a float, a dragon, for the Day of the Dead. They also make piñatas out of paper mache, and there's pictures of it right here. And the other thing that also is popular is the alabreas, which are whimsical paper mache creatures. And the cartoneros are paper mache crafters, and they make these alabreas. Now, the Linares family is one of the most famous families in Mexico. They are from Mexico City, and they are well known for making paper mache. Don Pedro Linares, who's the founder of this family, was bedridden and suffered from a high fever, and he dreamed these fantastical creatures and monsters. And when he woke up, he decided to create these monsters that he dreamed when he was sick. So that is where the alabreas began. And if you see these pictures here, there's two of them of the grandson of this family, Ricardo Linares, who is making these alabreas, these different versions of the alabreas. They're selling them now, and also for museums and things like that. They have had many commissions, including the 1968 Olympics, also have had commissions for the Day of the Dead parades. And you can actually even buy one through their website and also through art catalogs. So they're very, very popular. Other modern uses are theater and stage productions, because paper mache is light and you can make different items that you don't want to actually make out of real materials. For instance, if you are in a play and you need to make a tree, making it out of paper mache is easier, or a big rock, things like that. So they are used in theater and stage productions very, frequently. And also for masks for those productions, and puppets. And sometimes artists use paper mache in their artwork to create, pieces to sell. And these are some examples of those things. This is the Bread and Puppet Theater Company performing with masks made out of paper mache. Here are little hand puppets made using paper mache. And here is a mask made with paper mache. And these here are actually puppets, but big giant ones that you can wear. So there's a person under here, and they're in a parade, and They have sticks holding onto their hands on the end of their hands here so they can move their hands around, and they're very large, tall puppets made out of paper mache as well. And right here is an amazing example of an artist who has designed with paper mache, and this is Kim Graham's Studios, and she created this tree troll out of paper mache with 25 volunteers and friends using recycled paper products, and it's 12 feet tall. It's beautiful, and this is staged pictures of how they made it. Looks really, really beautiful. Now, so we are going to create a vase, a Greek vase out of paper mache, and you've already designed your vase, and we are going to create a base for your vase design in a sphere shape. This is what we're going to need to begin. Materials needed. I'm going to need an inflatable beach ball, black small cups, newspapers, non-stick cooking spray, Sharpie, and art paste. I have these ready for you in class. We're going to start doing this tomorrow. Now, Picasso and Van Gogh's job steps are going to be as follows. Picasso will get the newspapers for their tables right away. Van Gogh's will pass out the inflatable beach balls right away. After Picasso's pass out the newspaper, they will get the art paste and bring it back to their table. And the art paste will be set up on the counter for you in these containers. Your table will begin to make newspaper strips. As soon as your Picasso brings your table the newspaper, begin making those strips and tearing them into small pieces for your project. Make sure to make a lot so you don't run out. We can save them for next time if we don't use them all that day. Now check out this video for a demo of the quickest way to make strips and small pieces. When you are tearing your newspaper strips, there is a technique or a tip for you. You cut it like this. If you make strips on this side, okay, you'll make little strips and they won't like really come off like a strip. It'll little tiny pieces, maybe too tiny for our purposes, okay? So if you want to make nice strips for newspaper, you can see how the columns go in a vertical way right here. So what you can do is you can take it and make vertical strips. You see the difference? Now, I have a theory that the reason why this happens is because there's two things. The first is that it goes along with the grain of the paper, and both of them maybe. It is also because of the pressure that the print makes for those columns, and maybe it might have a weakness, so you can tear along the weakness. So both that and the grain of the paper probably have a lot to do with it. So if you make your strips and then line them up, and then what you can do is make tears in them, little tears to make small pieces. And this makes you able to make a large amount of strips. And now what you want to do is make a lot at the beginning, because it's really difficult to make strips out of newspaper and make little pieces out of those strips if your hands are full with goop, with the art paste, okay? So you want to make tons of strips for you to use for your inflate, okay? And your table to use too, to make a lot for your table as well, so no one runs out. Now, when you get your inflatable beach ball from your Van Gogh, you're going to need to inflate it. Now, there's different ways you can do it. You can use disinfecting wipes or sanitizer to clean the nozzle off and then blow it up yourself. Or, if you don't want to do that, you can have someone else at your table blow it up. Or, you can also use the air pump for last resort. Make sure to keep the nozzle up so you can use it as a handle. Now get your inflate sprayed. When your table is called, go up to the trash barrel to have your inflate sprayed with the non-stick cooking spray, so your layers will not stick to your inflate. This is a very important step, so don't forget it. This is how the volunteers will be spraying it over the trash. Make sure that you spray it over the trash, because if you don't, it's going to get very sticky on the floor and someone might slip. Things to remember. Leave the white circles on either side of your inflate free of newspaper. There's one white circle on the bottom and there's one white circle on the top near the nozzle. Now use the black cup for a base to hold your inflate so it does not roll around on the table. To make a name tag, you're going to use a piece of newspaper that is as empty of words as you can find. Then you're going to make a name tag with your Sharpie. You're going to put your name, your last initial, and your class name. If you don't have enough room, you could always put just R for realists. Now you will use art paste to add your name tag at the end of class. Now you're going to start layer 1. Once you have all your supplies that you need, you may begin your first layer. Watch this demonstration on how to make your layers. There are 2 more videos on Edmodo for you to view that show me finishing my first layer in one, and then the second shows an alternate version of this video close up. And then this bottom video shows the finished first layer. You're going to notice that it's very smooth and covered completely except for the top circle and the bottom circle. So let's watch this video.
Cover the whole thing the first day, it could fall apart. So you don't want all your time to be wasted, so make sure you cover it completely the first day. Remember our tips: do not cover the bottom circle, leave this top circle free too. So you're going to take your art paste and your strips, little pieces, okay, and you're going to dip it in the art paste, wipe off the excess art paste, and then place it on your inflate and smooth it down. You're going to continue taking pieces, but make sure when you add them, you are going to overlap the one you had before, making sure that there's no empty spots where you can see the inflate through. Overlapping. If your hands get really messy with the art paste, you can actually not even dip it. You can just use what's on your hands. And sometimes when you get a lot of art paste going, you can just use what art paste you have, the extra on your inflate. It's very thick and sticky, but it works really well for your layers. It's very strong. You can see I'm making one layer completely on top of your inflate. So don't concentrate on one section over and over again. You don't need to do that. This first day is focusing on making sure that you have one layer on the entire thing. Once you finish that, you can continue making your layers on top. But your priority needs to be to cover this whole thing at least once. Remember, you're using your black cup to stabilize your inflate so it doesn't go all over the place and run all over the table. And you can also flip this so you can get the other side easily. Just slightly overlapping the pieces and smoothing it down. If you do not smooth the pieces down, you'll have trouble later on. Also, make sure you remember to use small pieces. Now this piece is small, but also it's too long, so cut it in half and keep doing that. Now if you use a giant piece, say you have a big piece of newspaper, you think it's going to go quicker if you use a big piece, right? But it doesn't. What happens is it doesn't smooth down as well as it could to your inflate. And it may look all right, but more layers and more layers will make jagged areas where you'll have a hard time painting. So you want it to be very, very smooth. And how you do that is using small pieces, even though it'll take a little longer. Even that small piece has a fold here because it's going around a circle shape. So try to smooth it as much as possible. Also, when you finish one layer, you can take just the paste and smooth it over the whole entire thing. One of my students named this glazing, and you can do that every 2 or 3 layers to make it nice and smooth so you can paint it very easily. Again, remember your goal is to cover the entire thing today, the first day of making our inflates. Again, once you finish that first layer, you can move on to more. You don't need to stop or slow down. You can continue working, but your goal is to finish one at least. Remember our tips: to leave the top open, that little white spot, and also the bottom open, that white spot. You can cover the bottom if you'd like, but usually you cut into that area anyway, so leaving that open will be fine. When you are finished, you will take your name tag you made and use it just like a piece of newspaper and place it on your inflate with your and glaze it on, and that's how we will be able to tell which ones are ours later. So after every class, when we end, you need to put your name tag on, and you might need to make new name tags. I mean, you definitely probably will make lots of new name tags because you'll be covering those as we go with more and more layers. Okay? Make sure you cover the whole thing. It's the biggest tip for day 1 of making our inflates.
Now the bottom video shows the finished layer. And notice it is very smooth. And this is how you want it to look when you are finished with your first layer. And after you're done with this, you can continue with more layers if you have time tomorrow. And we're going to do many layers before we're done with this. End of class procedure. When the end of class is announced, make sure you follow the steps here. You're going to put your name tag on your inflate, and 2 students chosen at the beginning of class will gather the newspapers from each table. The way you can help them is to put the pile of newspapers together and close to one end of the table, so when they come to your table they can just scoop it into the bag. Now Van Goghs will take the inflates and the cup bases and bring them to the windowsill. They will bring everyone's at their table to that windowsill, so there'll be 4 or 5 people that they'll have to take the inflates for. Now Picasso will put the art paste on the counter and then get a sponge to come back and wash the table with. Now when the tables are clean, I will call students to wash hands, and then you'll work on your ticket out until your table is dismissed. The next phase after we finish our base for our vases is the construction phase. You're going to think about what kind of materials you're going to need for your construction phase. Think about what you can use to construct the vase shape that you have designed once you have that circle to start with. Now here are some examples of what you can use. Now if you can see here, there are lots of different things that you can use. Now you can use any sort of cardboard item, egg cartons, coffee holders, cups, the little black cups that we have in class, any sort of empty cans or bottles, containers, or even like foam circles. You can take wire from a hanger and untwist it and then twist it into any shape you want. Old tape circles. And what works quite a lot is the toilet paper rolls and paper towel rolls. So if you have any of those, you could save them too. What also you can use that isn't pictured here is milk cartons. And you can get the little ones from school and save them and wash them out, or you can get the big ones from home and use those as well, milk cartons or orange juice containers. Now start collecting those items from home that you think you may need. And if you have any questions and you want to brainstorm some ideas about your vase design, meet with me for construction ideas. Now here are some discussion questions I would like you to answer. Out of the different uses for paper mache, which interested you the most and why? What part of the process you learned about do you look forward to the most and why? What tips do you need to keep in mind as you work on your paper mache vase? And what kinds of materials might you need to collect to create the shape of the vase that you designed?